270 lives gone in moments. Just think about that. 270 stories, 270 dreams, 270 families waiting for a call that would never come. In the blink of an eye, an entire world shattered for so many. This is not just news. This is a human tragedy. One that demands not just our attention, but our awakening. Because every time a plane crashes, it reminds us of the terrifying truth we all pretend to forget. Life is fragile. Life is temporary. And nothing, absolutely nothing, is promised tomorrow. What if the person sitting beside you at dinner today won't come home tomorrow? What if your goodbye this morning was your last? We read headlines, we scroll past, but we forget these are people, someone's daughter, someone's father, someone's entire world lost forever. And the most heartbreaking part, we never know when fate will flip its cruel coin. So why are we living like we have time? Why are we wasting words, holding grudges, holding back our love? That's the idea I have for you. The most heartbreaking part will get lost choking on things we should say today because we think there's always tomorrow. This plane crash is not just about aviation failure. It's about the reality of life. Raw, ruthless, real. Let this moment wake you up. Let this tragedy not be just another sad scroll on your phone, but the reminder that life is today. And if you're not living fully, fiercely and fearlessly, then you're wasting the greatest gift you've ever been given. Your breath. Life has a strange way of reminding us that control is just an illusion. We make plans, we build dreams, we set routines, believing that tomorrow is waiting patiently for us. But the truth, the raw, unsettling, undeniable truth, is that life is the most unpredictable force in the universe. It gives no warnings, no signs, no hints. Before it changes everything in a single moment. Like the tragic Air India crash where 270 souls thought they were just taking another flight. Maybe heading to work, to family, to new beginnings. But they never reached their destination. In the blink of an eye, their time was over. No one expects that the last coffee they sip in the airport will be their final one. No one imagines that the goodbye hug to their child will be the last. Yet life unfolds this way, suddenly, sharply, without mercy. Think about it. How many times have you left your house in the morning, absolutely certain you'd return in the evening? You grab your bag, lock the door, maybe forget to say I love you to someone, thinking there's always later. But what if later never comes? What if this moment, this very breath, is the only one guaranteed? We scroll past news like this plane crash, telling ourselves how sad and move on. But do we stop and let it shake our own reality? Because the same unpredictable life that took those 270 people without warning is the same life you and I are living right now. This is not a distant story. This is a reminder written in pain and loss. Remember the story of that young man who kissed his mother goodbye, promising to call her after his business trip. But that call never happened. Or the girl who texted her best friend, "See you soon," before boarding, never knowing she wouldn't step foot on the ground again. These are not fairy tales or fiction. These are real moments, frozen forever in time, because life didn't follow the plan. How foolish are we to think that we own time? We save apologies for tomorrow. We save forgiveness for someday. We store dreams in boxes labeled later. But later is a liar. Later may never come. What if this was your last sunrise? Would you still argue over petty things? Would you still scroll endlessly through social media, wasting hours comparing yourself to strangers? Would you hold back your feelings, afraid of rejection, if you knew you'd never get another chance to say them? I met a woman once who spent years building her career, ignoring her health, because there's time to rest later. Cancer didn't wait. Cancer didn't care about her plans. Life pulled the rug from beneath her when she least expected it. She told me, with tears in her eyes, I was living for a future I never reached. I forgot to live now. Her words haunt me. They should haunt all of us. Because how many of us are postponing life, betting on a tomorrow that isn't promised? Even in simple ways, like skipping family dinners because work emails matter more, ignoring calls from old friends because you're too tired, saying I'll start that dream next year because you believe time is endless. But time is a silent thief. You never see it coming, but when it leaves, it takes everything. Just like that plane crash took everything from 270 families. Smiles that will never be seen again. The smiles that will never be seen again. Voices that will never speak again. When you wake up in the morning, you assume you will sleep in your bed at night. But what if you don't? What if today is all you've got? Would you still stay silent when your heart wants to speak? Would you still wait for the right time to chase your passion? Or would you rise, fearless, bold, unstoppable, knowing that life is not meant to be delayed, but devoured? The unpredictability of life is not a curse. It's the greatest motivator we have. Because knowing that nothing is certain gives us permission to live fully, to risk, to leap, to dance when the world tells us to sit, to speak when fear tells us to be quiet. This is your moment. This is your story being written. Don't waste it by assuming there will be another page. Stop delaying the important things, because life will not wait for you to feel ready. That's the hardest truth most people try to ignore. We tell ourselves there's always time to apologize tomorrow, to call that old friend next week, to visit our parents next month, to start chasing our dreams next year. But tomorrow is not promised. Next week is not guaranteed, and next year might never come. This is why delaying the important things is like holding a precious flower in your hand and watching it wither slowly, because you never watered it. How many relationships have crumbled because of a message left unsent? How many mothers have sat waiting by the phone for a child who promised to call but got too busy? How many people die with dreams still trapped in their heart because they thought they'd get another chance? I remember meeting a man who wanted to write a book. Every time I saw him, he said, I'll start next month, when work slows down, when the kids grow older, when I have more time. 10 years passed. His book was never written. Life moved faster than his excuses. And in the end, regret sat heavier on his heart than any rejection ever could. What if he had written that book? What impact could his words have made? The saddest stories are not of failures, but of things never even attempted. Look at your own life. How many dreams are you delaying? How many times have you swallowed words because you were afraid of what people might think? How many times have you stopped yourself from loving fully because you feared heartbreak? But fear doesn't save you. It robs you. One day you will wish you spoke. You will wish you dared. You will wish you leapt. But life doesn't give refunds for missed moments. When the plane crashes, when the unexpected happens, when the goodbye is forever, you will only have the silence of what you didn't do. There's a girl I knew who wanted to tell her father how much she loved him. But every time she picked up the phone, she thought, I'll call him tomorrow. Then one day, tomorrow never came. Her father was gone. She cried not only for her loss, but for the words she never said, because they burned in her throat like fire. But she had waited too long to release them. Don't make the same mistake. If you love someone, tell them now. If you want forgiveness, ask for it now. If you want to change your life, start now. Even in the smallest ways, delaying kills joy. How many times have you wanted to start getting healthy, but said, Monday, I'll start the gym on Monday. Why Monday? Why not today? Your body doesn't wait. Your health won't wait. Your energy is fading every moment. You choose later over now. Or the friend you've been meaning to see. The coffee you've postponed 3 times because life feels too busy. What if that friend is gone before the 4th plan is made? The truth is brutal. Busyness is not an excuse, it's a choice. Some people keep waiting for the perfect time to propose, to move abroad, to switch careers, to start their path. But the perfect time is a myth. It never arrives dressed in certainty. It sneaks in like a whisper in the middle of your fear and asks, will you dare anyway? But in waiting, she lost her self-respect, her confidence, her joy. Only when she realized that the pain of staying was worse than the fear of leaving did she walk away. And she told me something that will stay with me forever. The right time to choose yourself is always now. Always now. Stop delaying the words you need to speak. Stop delaying the risks you need to take. Stop delaying the forgiveness you need to give. Because the cost of delay is regret. And regret is the heaviest burden a human heart can carry. Every second spent waiting is a second lost forever. Time never comes back. It is the only currency that once spent can never be earned again. Your priorities shape your legacy, whether you realize it or not. What you choose to focus on every single day is building the story that people will remember about you when you're gone. Not the words you spoke once at a grand event, not the photo you posted for likes, but the choices you made in the quiet, ordinary moments when no one was watching. It is in those moments your legacy is written. You see, life does not ask you what you want to be remembered for. It simply records what you gave your time, your energy, and your heart to. And that becomes your truth. That becomes your legacy. Some people spend their lives chasing status, wealth, and attention. They climb the ladder of success, ignoring family dinners, missing birthdays, canceling important calls with old friends, thinking there will be time later. They collect cars, houses, jewelry, but lose connection, peace, and purpose. And when they reach the top, the applause fades quickly. The bank account stays full, but the heart feels empty. No child ever remembers how expensive their father's watch was. They remember how their father made them feel. No friend grieves the handbag you bought. They miss the comfort of your laugh, the warmth of your care. What you prioritize builds the memories others carry long after you are gone. I knew a woman who built her entire life around her job. She was admired, successful, always dressed in power suits, and holding meetings that felt urgent. But she missed her son's school plays, forgot her mother's birthday, lost touch with friends who needed her. When illness came suddenly and unexpectedly, she lay in her hospital bed weeping, not for lost money or lost status, but for moments she could never reclaim. She told me, I built an empire, but neglected my own world. What have I really left behind? That is the cruel truth. You don't get to take your achievements with you. She could scarcely drink water from the tap. When I got to an elevator, I wanted to tell her you were not there, but you don't get to take your achievements with you. You could scarcely drink water from the tap. You could scarcely drink water from the tap. Only your impact remains. Your legacy is shaped when you choose to spend a Sunday morning holding your grandmother's hand instead of checking emails. It is shaped when you turn off the television and listen to your child's endless stories with patience, making them feel like the most important person in the world. It is shaped when you choose kindness over ego, generosity over greed, love over pride. These small, silent acts seem invisible to the world, but they are carving your legacy deeply into the hearts of those who will remember you forever. There's a man I met once. Simple, not rich, not famous. But his funeral was overflowing with people. Why? Because he gave time, love, and care to everyone he met. He fixed neighbors' cars for free. He made strangers laugh at bus stops. He showed up when nobody else did. He prioritized people over possessions. And that is why he was unforgettable. His life left echoes in the hearts of hundreds. That is a real legacy. No award could ever buy that. Meanwhile, there are people who lived in palaces, ruled industries, gathered millions, and died lonely, unvisited, forgotten. Because what they prioritized was shallow, temporary, selfish. They shaped a legacy no one cared to remember. Life offers that brutal choice to all of us. What will you make matter? Even in the smallest daily choices, do you pause to comfort a friend or scroll through your phone? Do you lift someone's spirit with your words or stay silent out of convenience? Do you sacrifice joy for status, love for ambition, peace for pride? Every decision is a thread woven into the fabric of your legacy. You are already leaving one with every heartbeat, every action. So the question is not, will I be remembered? The real question is, what will I be remembered for? And that answer lies in your priorities today. Not tomorrow, not someday, today. Because the things you make time for right now are silently becoming the story people will tell about you when your voice is no longer here. Safety is not an option, it's a responsibility. It is not something we get to choose when it feels convenient or ignore when it feels like an inconvenience. Safety is the invisible thread that holds life together, the silent shield that protects dreams, families, futures. When safety is delayed, disaster is inevitable. When safety is delayed, regret becomes permanent. The tragic Air India plane crash that claimed 270 innocent lives is not just a failure of machines or technology. It is the result of someone, somewhere, treating safety like an option instead of a sacred duty. Think about it. Every time a mechanic skips a tiny inspection because they are tired or distracted, they are gambling with hundreds of lives. Every time an airline cuts costs on maintenance to increase profit, they are risking entire families. Every time a pilot feels unwell but is forced to fly because of pressure, they are putting hundreds of futures on the line. These are not small mistakes. They are choices that turn into headlines soaked with grief. And yet, this lesson is ignored until it's too late. When a plane crashes, the world cries for a week, demands answers for a month, and then forgets until the next tragedy strikes. But it's not just about planes or airlines. Safety is your responsibility too. When you text while driving because you think it's just a second, you are risking your life and someone else's family forever. When you ignore the warning signs of your body, pain, tiredness, stress, because you're too busy chasing work. You are gambling with your own future. When companies ignore building codes to save money, when people rush through dangerous shortcuts to save time, when governments delay crucial safety reforms because of politics, they're all turning life into a dangerous game where innocent people always lose. I remember a factory worker who skipped wearing his helmet one day because it felt heavy. That day, a piece of machinery broke loose and hit him. His life changed forever in that instant. Months of hospital beds, years of regret, a future shattered because of one simple neglected safety measure. He told me later, "I thought I was being smart, saving time, but I lost far more than I saved." Safety is not extra. It is essential. Even at home, how many parents ignore locking medicine cabinets, leaving sharp tools within reach of children? How many fires have started because someone thought, "I'll blow that candle out later"? How many accidents happen because someone left the wet floor without a warning sign? We forget that the cost of neglect is always higher than the cost of caution. For organizations, safety must be the foundation, not the decoration. No deadline, no budget, no profit is worth a human life. Cutting corners on safety is like building a castle on sand. It will collapse. And the price will be paid in blood and sorrow. The airlines, the transport companies, the factories, the hospitals, the schools, every single one must remember this. When they forget, the news becomes filled with names that should have gone home to their families but never did. I once met a survivor of a plane crash. He said the worst part was not the crash itself, but knowing it could have been prevented. The cracks were there. The warnings were there, but someone chose to ignore them. That knowing was more painful than the broken bones. Because every disaster is a message written too late. You could have prevented this. Let that message not reach your life, your workplace, your choices. Safety is not fear. Safety is respect. For life, for people, for the future. The worker who checks the bolts twice, the driver who slows down at every crossing, the mother who child-proofs every room, the engineer who refuses to rush an inspection, they are not paranoid. They are heroes in quiet ways. They save lives without anyone clapping for them. But without them, the world would collapse into chaos. Your choices today decide whether someone else gets to live tomorrow. Whether they get to see their family again, whether they get to finish their story. Every shortcut skipped, every warning ignored, every sign dismissed is a silent invitation for tragedy to strike. The responsibility of safety belongs to all of us, not just pilots or engineers or governments. Every human being shares this burden because every human life matters. Gratitude is the only real way to live. Because everything you are holding right now, everything you have right now, can disappear in a heartbeat. This life that you take for granted, the breath you just took, the ability to see the sunlight, the simple joy of walking on your own feet, is not owed to you. It is a gift. A priceless, fragile, temporary gift that can be taken without warning, without mercy, without explanation. When you live without gratitude, you are blind to the miracles happening around you every single day. You are asleep in a world bursting with beauty. I once met a woman who survived a terrible accident. Before that day, she hated her life, complained about her job, her relationship, her body, everything. But after the accident, when she woke up in a hospital bed, broken and bruised, she said something that shook my soul. All I prayed for was to be able to walk to the bathroom on my own. not a car, not money, not fame. Just to stand without pain. You see, you only understand the value of your legs when you can't use them. You only appreciate breathing when the doctor says your lungs are failing. You only realize the treasure of an ordinary day when you lose the chance to live another one. Gratitude makes life rich, even when the world says you have nothing. I've seen a poor farmer with torn clothes laugh louder and smile brighter than a millionaire sitting in silence on his leather couch. Why? Because that farmer wakes up thankful for the sunrise, for the rain that feeds his crops, for the warm embrace of his children. The millionaire, drowned in comparison, craving more, feels empty because he's forgotten how to be grateful for what he already has. Gratitude is the wealth that money can never buy. Even in suffering, gratitude transforms the heart. There was a man who lost his entire business overnight. Everything he built crumbled. But when I asked how he was coping, he said, "At least my family is safe. At least I have a chance to start again. So many don't." That is gratitude in its purest, strongest form. When life breaks you and you can still find something to say thank you for, you have conquered the world's worst storms. Because gratitude is not for perfect moments. It's for real life. The messy, painful, unpredictable life that still offers you small joys if you choose to see them. Think about the last time you were stuck in traffic, angry, impatient, frustrated. Did you stop to thank life that you have a car to drive? That you have legs that can walk, a mind that can think, eyes that can see the road? Most don't. Most curse what they have because they forget that millions of others would give anything to trade places. The man begging at the roadside would dance to sit in your traffic jam. The patient in the hospital would give anything to live your ordinary, boring day. Gratitude makes love deeper, relationships stronger. When you thank your partner for the little things they do, making tea, folding clothes, smiling at you when you're tired, they feel seen, valued, cherished. When you ignore these things, they wither. How many marriages die not from hate, but from the starvation of gratitude? A simple thank you can save a bond that silence would slowly destroy. Gratitude is not weakness. It is the power that holds the heart alive. Even in moments of fear, gratitude gives you courage. The soldier on the battlefield, terrified for his life, thinks of his family waiting at home. That thought, that grateful memory, gives him strength to keep going. The mother in pain during childbirth holds her newborn and forgets the agony, overwhelmed with gratitude for life itself. Gratitude turns suffering into meaning. It turns loss into wisdom. It turns endings into new beginnings. I once spoke with an old man who had lost everything, his home, his savings, his health. Yet he sat smiling, feeding birds in the park. When I asked him why he was at peace, he said, "Because I woke up today, because the sky is blue, because I can still breathe." That is the wisdom life tries to teach us every day. But we are too busy to hear it. Gratitude is the only real way to live. Because without it, no success feels enough, no joy feels complete, no dream feels fulfilling. Tragedy must inspire change, not just sympathy. Because sympathy alone cannot heal wounds, cannot rebuild broken systems, cannot prevent the next disaster from tearing apart more lives. Sympathy is easy, it is comfortable, it costs nothing. You watch the news of a terrible crash, of innocent lives lost, of families torn apart, and you feel a sting in your heart. Maybe you cry, maybe you whisper a prayer, maybe you post a line on social media. So sad. R.I.P. And then what? You return to your life. You forget. But the families who lost their loved ones, mothers without sons, children without fathers, wives without husbands, they do not forget. Their grief lives on long after the headlines fade. If tragedy only leaves behind sorrow and pity, it is wasted pain. It must leave behind lessons, actions, changes that ensure such pain is not repeated. When an aeroplane falls from the sky, killing hundreds, the world weeps for a moment. But what the world needs more than tears is truth. What went wrong? Why did it happen? Who ignored the warning signs? What can be fixed before the next plane takes off? Real change demands courage, not comfort. It demands that people stand up, demand answers, demand justice, demand reform. Because without change, tragedy is just a story, repeated endlessly, with new names, new faces, new graves. Discover our truth. The rules of our past demand reform. Without change, tragedy is just a story repeated endlessly, with new names, new faces, new graves. I remember the story of a city that flooded every year, drowning homes, sweeping away lives. And every year the politicians promised new dams, better drainage, stronger defenses. But nothing changed. Money vanished into pockets. Plans gathered dust. Until one year, the flood took hundreds of children's lives. That time, the anger was too loud to silence. The people stood together, demanded action, refused to move until the government built what they had promised for years, and finally change came. It was too late for the lost ones, but it saved thousands in the years that followed. This is what tragedy must do. Not paralyze us with sadness, but push us to fight harder, build better, care deeper. Even in our personal lives, tragedy must shape our actions. When you lose someone suddenly, a friend in an accident, a cousin to disease, you feel the crushing weight of things unsaid, moments missed. But if you let that loss wake you up, if you start calling your loved ones more often, if you start forgiving faster, loving louder, living fuller, then the tragedy births change. The pain plants purpose. I knew a woman who lost her husband to a heart attack because he ignored his health. She turned that grief into power, opened a wellness center, taught thousands to eat better, live stronger, care for their hearts. A loss became a light for others. History is full of tragedies that forced the world to evolve. Factories that burned, killing workers because of locked doors. Those deaths birthed new laws for worker safety. Planes that crashed because of flaws in design. Those failures forced engineers to rethink, redesign, rebuild safer skies. But only because people refused to settle for sympathy. They demanded change. They turned their tears into action. Even as ordinary people, we carry this responsibility. When you hear of a woman harmed because no one spoke up, will you remain silent the next time? When you see a child suffer because of neglect, will you walk past or will you intervene? When a tragedy shakes your community, will you wait for someone else to fix it or will you rise? Change does not begin in government buildings or corporate boardrooms. It begins in hearts that refuse to accept that suffering is normal, that loss is fate, that mistakes are forever. I met a young man who lost his sister in a road accident caused by drunk driving. He could have drowned in grief. Instead, he toured schools, teaching teenagers about the deadly risks of drunk driving. He saved lives because of the life he lost. His pain became a shield for others. This is the highest purpose of tragedy, not to break us, but to awaken us. When we let tragedy inspire change, the lost lives are not lost in vain. They become the reason the world grows safer, kinder, wiser. When we stop at sympathy, the cycle of pain continues, the news keeps repeating, the tears keep falling. But when we rise from grief into action, we honor the lost by protecting the living. And so the truth stands before us, undeniable, unshakable, roaring like thunder in a silent room. Life is not promised, time is not unlimited, and safety is not a gentle request. It is a sacred responsibility. Every moment you breathe is a moment bought by the price of caution, care, and the choices of others. You are alive not because of luck, but because someone somewhere respected the value of life. Someone checked that machine twice. Someone obeyed the signal. Someone refused to ignore the warning signs. That's why you're here, listening. And tomorrow, someone will depend on your caution, your awareness, your responsibility for their own survival. You cannot wait until tragedy knocks on your own door to awaken. You cannot wait until grief grips your throat and makes you gasp for lost time, lost people, lost chances. The stories of crashes, fires, failures, and human error are not someone else's story. They are lessons carved in blood and tears, messages written for you, warnings screaming from history itself. The question is, will you listen, or will you wait to become the next tragic headline? Remember this forever. Sympathy comforts, but change saves. Sympathy sheds tears, but change prevents death. Sympathy writes out to you, not to mourn, but to rise. Not to sigh, but to build. Not to forget, but to act. When you hear about a plane crash, or a collapsed bridge, or an avoidable fire, don't just feel sadness. Feel fire. Feel a responsibility waking inside you. Ask, what can I do? What must I never neglect? Where must I speak up? What must I demand from the world and myself? There is no greatness in standing silent in the face of danger. There is no nobility in pretending all is well when the cracks are showing. The great men and women of history did not build legacies by avoiding discomfort. They faced the bitter truth and turned it into bold action. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Silence feeds tragedy. Action destroys it. Action saves lives. Look around your own life. Where are you ignoring small dangers, thinking they're too minor to matter? Is it in the workplace where safety rules are treated like boring obstacles? Is it in your health where you ignore the pain that keeps warning you something is wrong? Is it in your home where you leave risks unchecked because you think it won't happen to me? That's what every victim thought, until it did happen to them. Break that illusion. Live awake. Live responsible. And beyond safety, live grateful. Because nothing you hold right now is permanent. That familiar face you love could vanish without goodbye. That heartbeat you trust could stop before the sun sets. That normal, boring day you complain about could become the day you beg to have back. Gratitude is not a feel-good habit. It is a fierce, urgent way of living with your eyes open. Say thank you. Hug tighter. Forgive faster. Speak the truth sooner. Because the next hour is not promised. The world is filled with stories of people who thought they had time and didn't. Dreams left unspoken. Apologies left unsaid. Love left unexpressed. Don't be one of them. Let every tragedy remind you, time is precious. Life is fragile. Action is power. Change is duty. Because the price of ignoring these truths is always too high, always too cruel. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. Not tomorrow, not someday, now, today, right now is the only moment you control, the only moment where life can be protected, dreams can be lived, regrets can be avoided. Right now is the moment you can choose to be brave instead of passive, awake instead of blind, responsible instead of careless. So rise, not with fear, but with fire. Not with despair, but with determination. Stand guard over your life, over the lives of those around you. Speak when no one dares. Act when others wait. Care when the world shrugs. Refuse to let another tragedy go by without birthing change. Refuse to let another warning be ignored. Refuse to let safety, gratitude, and action be optional. Because you were not born to be silent. You were not born to be careless. You were born to matter. You were born to build a legacy of courage, of action, of real impact. The world is waiting not for your tears, but for your strength. Not for your sadness, but for your leadership. Not for your excuses, but for your change. As Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. So do the impossible. Break the chain of tragedy, become the spark that lights safety, responsibility, and gratitude in the hearts of others. Let your life be the proof that one soul can change the future, not by mourning the past, but by fighting for a better tomorrow.